I found this cylinder from an old ice cream maker and thought it would be perfect for a fall craft. My grandpa always had a plaid canister that he would have with him with either coffee or soup. And this new Roycycled Tartan decoupage paper reminds me a lot of that, but only for the fall because of the color. So I start by cutting my sheet and trimming it to fit my can. And I've already painted my can, and every place that I'm going to decoupage, I've painted white in preparation for this project. I'm going to do a dry fit with my paper before I get started. I want to make sure that my edges don't overlap too much so my design looks nice and clean. Once I get it lined up exactly the way I want, I trim off the excess paper. When I'm dry fitting my paper for the final fit, I want to make sure that the top is lined up with the rim and that the side is lined up with the seam. This way I can make sure that my pattern is going to go straight around the can. I spritz my water first so that it will stretch and I don't have to worry about having any wrinkles. I'm going to put down a starter row of product just to make sure that I get my paper started just right so I don't have any problems as I wrap around the can. Whenever you're spritzing your paper, you may want to use a little more decoupage medium than you're used to using. The wet paper doesn't readily absorb the way it does when it's dry, and I want to make sure that I have good adhesion to the surface. Making sure that my paper is lined up with the seam and the top, I continue decoupaging all the way around. I'm smoothing out the paper really just to ensure that there's good contact between the paper and the surface. I really don't have to worry about wrinkles forming because the paper stretches once I spritz it. Once I get it laid down and I know it's going to wrap around the can perfectly, I can go ahead and continue decoupaging, taking the same steps all the way around until my can is fully covered. If you like what you're learning here on this free tutorial, be sure and check out the link below at Roycycled Academy. My Roycycled Masterclass teaches all things decoupage. Now that I've gotten my decoupage medium laid on the surface just the way I want, I can go ahead and finish decoupaging this and getting it laid out. Now that it's dry, I can start to trim the bottom of my can. I have a 220 grit sanding block that I'm going to use just to trim off the excess paper. And that is it, you guys. This project is all done. What do you guys think? Are you going to make this project this fall? This is so cute. I can imagine it being used to hold fall florals. I think it's perfectly rustic and it brings back so many fond memories to me about my grandfather. I hope you're enjoying this free tutorial. If you love the decoupage paper that I'm using, you guys can find your own stash. You can find more designs and a list of retailers at roycycled.com. I found this basket while thrifting in Las Vegas, and I love it because the back is flat, which means I can hang it on my front door with fall florals and it'll be super cute. I don't care for the bow on the front. We're going to take care of that in a minute, but first we're going to be using the Roycycled Fall Botanicals decoupage paper. This is so easy to remove. I'm just going to clip the front and then all the other pieces that are attached to this will come right off. The Roycycled decoupage papers are roughly 20 inch by 30 inch. The tissue paper is heavier than wrapping tissue paper, but much lighter than like copy paper. So it's perfect for decoupage. I start by painting my basket white. I want to make sure that the images on my decoupage paper really pop. I'm taking my time to really push the paint into all of the texture on this basket. Once it's dry, I can figure out which part of the decoupage paper that I want to use. I've already taken the time to tape off the areas that I don't want either paint or decoupage to be on. Once I decide which piece I want, I can go ahead and start decoupaging. I'm dry fitting my piece because this is an irregular shape and it has texture. So I want to make sure that everything is going to line up perfectly before I start decoupaging. Once I'm sure everything is going to fit just the way I want, I can start. I mist my decoupage paper again and stretch it out to get rid of any wrinkles before I start decoupaging. For this project, the extra moisture is really going to help because I want the texture from the basket to actually show through the paper. So this is going to be perfect. Misting the paper makes the paper more malleable. And once I start decoupaging, I can use my brush to actually push the paper into the texture, being super careful, of course, because this is tissue paper. I'm putting on a little extra decoupage medium for this project because A, the paper is wet, and B, there's tons of texture on the surface, and I want to make sure that I have good adhesion even in between all of these nooks and crannies. So when I'm laying it down with my brush, I'm just pushing the paper into that texture because I really want it to show through the paper. Once I get my anchor roll down, I can go ahead and decoupage the rest of my project. If you enjoy thrifting and upcycled DIYs, be sure and like and follow the Roycycled channel. If you hit the bell, you'll get an alert whenever I upload a new video. Now that my paper is all decoupaged and dried, I can go ahead and trim off the excess paper, and this basket is going to be so cute. You guys, I'm a mess. I'm using scissors for this. Don't do that. Make sure you have make sure that you have a really sharp blade for this so that you get a nice clean cut. Whenever you're trimming your decoupage paper, you want to make sure that your paper is completely dry so that it cuts and doesn't tear. And you also want to make sure that you're working with a really sharp blade so you get a nice clean cut on your trim. Once I remove this tape, I can preserve some of the rattan on this basket and still have special details from the decoupage paper. My last step is just to go along the edges and the corners and just make sure that everything is tacked down and that I haven't left anything where the paper is going to lift anytime in the near future. Our last project is this silver coated tray that I scored at the thrift store. I am torn about what I should do with this tray. You guys, please help me decide. I don't know if I want to just keep going and make this a door hanger, or if I want to put some resin in here and make it a functional tray. For this project, we'll be using the Roycycled Fall Botanicals decoupage paper again. There are so many yummy pieces on this sheet of decoupage paper. There are so many different projects you can get out of just one sheet, or you can even just use one sheet on a piece of furniture. These masterboard designs are so versatile. They've become my absolute favorite. I'm using my nail to mark my paper so that I know exactly where to trim. Once I get my paper cut out, I can go ahead and dry fit it on my tray. I'm cutting around my mark, leaving about 1/4 of an inch overhang. I want to give myself a small margin of error just in case I didn't measure correctly, but I don't want to leave too much paper because it's just extra work to trim it. And if you have too much paper hanging off the side that stays dry, it can give you weird tension and make it harder to decoupage your projects. Once I decide exactly where I want my paper, I can go ahead and get it decoupaged. I'm being really careful to only lay decoupage medium where I want my paper to stick. I don't want to get any of my clear coat on the silver because then I'll have to worry about cleaning the paper off of those areas. So by being careful when I'm doing my decoupage, I won't create problems for myself later. My friends are giving me a hard time about prepping for fall early, but you makers know we can never start too early. What do you think? I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure and check out the information on my masterclass below, or you can check out Roycycled Academy for other courses I teach. Otherwise, you can find me on all the places: Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, all at Roycycled. Thank you so much. You guys, remember, there isn't anything that I've taught today that you cannot absolutely do. You can do this, and you can do it today. Bye.